Hello, welcome back to NPC Stories. The 4th of July was this week here in America. Well, it was technically the 4th of July everywhere, but in America that's a holiday, which means that hopefully soon the nightly onslaught of fireworks that began in June will end. In honor of that, all of the NPCs this week are going to be explosive. What do I mean by explosive NPCs? Well, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure, but these guys certainly know how to make things go boom. Elementalist Doris Mard is a half-dwarf raped by his mother among dwarves. It's been a while since I've done this. I'm gonna need a little pick-me-up. You know what I don't have? Tea. Much better. Elementalist Doris Mard is a half-dwarf who was raised by his mother amongst the dwarves. He was considered an oddity not just because of his human blood, but because of his insatiable curiosity about magic and the elements. When he was old enough, he left his community and wandered into strange, feral elemental planes, which touched his soul and changed his essence. Upon his return, he was plagued by wild and uncontrollable magic, so he traveled to a school of magic in an attempt to learn how to handle his power. He worked and studied hard and is now a great elementalist and the head of the School of Evocation. Doris is tall for a dwarf but short for a human at 4'11", and slim for a dwarf but stout for a human. He has dark skin, black hair, and hazel eyes and wears red wizard's robes with gold embroidery that signify his position as a teacher. He wears gold dwarven-made bracers embedded with a white, blue, green, and red gem that are also enchanted with elemental magic. Doris has a straightforward, no-nonsense approach to all things, a characteristic that he picked up from his time spent living with dwarves. But he is a calm and patient teacher, and very little can rattle him, though he has little tolerance for ignorance. Dibble is an eccentric halfling wizard who, like Doris, used to specialize in elemental magic. But Dibble liked to experiment with his magic, and a spell gone wrong nearly wiped out his entire hometown. He has since sworn off the stuff, sticking with safer things like potion making. He moved to the big city to sell his wares and opened his shop, The Stormy Gnome. I know, he's a halfling, but he's eccentric. Dibble is a short, compact halfling with dark blonde hair, fair skin, and hazel eyes. He wears common clothes and never owns, wears, or carries anything metallic, as he has a tendency to kind of spark and spasm. Dibble fears magic and metal and doesn't particularly want either of them in his shop. He only knows how to make a few potions and is very defensive about his lack of skill. Otherwise, he is open and friendly, but non-negotiable. Beatty is a dragonborn, but there are some things you need to know about dragonborn in my campaign setting before we can really get into her character. Dragons used to rule basically everything, until a war broke out between the Metallics and the Chromatics that nearly drove their race to extinction. In an effort to save their race, the dragons created the Dragonborn, soldiers who would fight on their behalf. For a while they did, but they inherited their creator's strong will and revolted. Now most Dragonborn wander in barbaric tribes, raiding and looting to survive. That is the life that Beery was born into. During one raid, she discovered an alchemist who had created a weapon that she had never seen before. She persuaded the alchemist to hand it over, and left him alive so that he could repair it should it ever break. With her new weapon in tow, she left her tribe behind, giving up her clan name to pursue her own freedom and her own wealth. She now works as hired muscle for the highest bidder. Beatty has black scales and the acid breath to go with it. She is tall, broad, and muscular, as most Dragonborn are, and her body is marked with scars. She wears common clothes and wields the thunder cannon that she stole from that was given to her by the alchemist. And just in case some of her explosives fail her, she has them all. Beatty is not one for talking unless she is negotiating her potential pay. She is reckless and often doesn't take the time to consider risks before agreeing to do something, or charging into battle. And there are some explosive NPCs. Half-dwarf is obviously a homebrewed race. I made it myself from a dwarf and a half-elf, so I will include that race sheet thing down in the doobly-doo with all the other character sheets. If you don't want to use a half-dwarf, you can make him either a stout halfling or a regular dwarf. As always, I hope this was somehow helpful or inspiring to you. You can let me know by liking this video, or you can find me on Twitter at NPC Stories. If you want to see more NPCs in the future, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Join me next week as we talk about homebrew characters. That means race or class that you won't find in any of these books. These 5e books. It might be in those 3.5 books.